Bolt your windows. Lock your doors. Check your closets. Look under your bed. And then prepare yourself. For it's another episode of Dark Night of the Podcast.
Good evening and welcome to the Dark Night of the Podcast 5-year anniversary spectacular, featuring special guest appearances from Troy Escamilla and Roger Connors and nobody else because we don't have time for friends or socialization and nobody wants to hang out with us, but that's okay. Because it's given you 5 years of hoary, gory, gay content. What do you think about that, Troy?
Woohoo! 5 years we've been doing this. 5 years.
Feels like 50.
I know. Most of y'all relationships don't even last 5 years. And here we are. We've been on this podcast for 5 years, 170 episodes. Way more than that if you count the Patreon. We have, probably pushing 270, but 170 episodes we've given you guys and gals over the years, and we just have to acknowledge 5 years, guys, show us some love. We didn't post about it on social media. I want to make a little graphic, recognizing that it is our 5 years, because a lot of podcasts don't make it past 5 weeks. So that tells you guys something. Yes, Roger's right. We have busy lives. We have things going on, but I think we can both say one thing we absolutely look forward to each week is being able to get on and spend 2 hours just shooting the shit with each other about a specific film. It lets us take a break from everything else and just talk horror, talk shop,
talk gaiety. Talk homosexuality. We're giving you the best of all possible worlds here at Dark Night of the Podcast. And we've been serving it up hot for 5 years. And I really think the best way that you all can celebrate us and thank us for our contributions to your day-to-day would be by possibly going to Apple Podcast and leaving us a kind, loving 5-star review. I can't think of a better time for you all to get off your lazy asses and type on into your phone something nice. Keep it brief. You don't have to go too in detail, but just say, I love Roger and all his pizzazz, or I love Troy and his salt and pepper beard. Whatever you got to say, as long as it's complimentary, because it's our 5-year anniversary, and I'm demanding it. I'm demanding it, Troy.
Yes, please. 5 years, guys. I don't think you realize 5 years we've been doing this. We deserve a couple of new 5-star Apple Podcast reviews, especially after our last couple episodes. I mean, come on. What more can we give you? Well, you're going to find out right now, because this title is giving you something. Oh, boy, Roger, boy.
On paper, this really sounds like the film for us. When you think about what film will Troy and Roger really tackle with a lot of gusto? And I think when you hear a title like Beware Children at Play, 1989's Beware Children at Play, you think, this is really going to deliver. And there are a couple moments where I might say it does. But overall, is this going to be what I would consider a flattering review of Beware Children at Play here for our 5-year anniversary? No, I don't. I think that Troy and I are pretty much aligned that this film is as bad as you would anticipate it to be, honestly. Like, when you consider what you're about to experience with this movie, they give it to you. They give you what you want out of this movie, which is a massacre of many children. You don't get that very often. I mean, and Troy and I, we were sitting there chomping at the bit, just waiting for this scene to come about. And it does. It eventually comes, but it is a long, arduous, dare I say, 5-year long journey that it takes to get there. But it is the right film for us to cover for this 5-year anniversary because, Troy and I are always talking about kids dying in movies, and it just doesn't happen enough. And I do think this film will probably satiate our appetite for a good long while. Don't you think, Troy?
Yeah. I mean, I said before we started this, I said, you know what? This review could literally be 15 minutes long. This could be our shortest review ever because the only thing worth half-assed talking about in this film is the final 5 minutes. And then that medium broad that shows up halfway through, which we'll get to her. But let me be clear. I had seen this movie, or had at least seen the ending of this movie. I don't believe I've seen the whole thing because I would remember how fucking boring it is. Wow. I was not expecting it to be so draggy in parts and to harp on things that don't make much fucking sense at all. Why a kid becomes obsessed with Grindel. And if you give me a dime for every time the word Grindel is mentioned in this movie, Roger, I'd have my first class trip to Houston paid for this week because, oh my God, do they hammer this into the ground?
The storyline here is thin, and it is going to be an easy, breezy episode. I mean, this one ain't taking much thought. So everyone, sit back, relax, grab a piece of cake to celebrate our anniversary. You did say a key word there that I want to highlight real quick. You said the word Houston and Troy. Before we get into the title on everyone's lips, Beware Children at Play, everyone's lips. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that by the time this episode drops, hopefully it's going to come out just before the film festival. Hopefully, we shall see. But we're going to be at the Houston Horror Film Festival this weekend. At least based off when we're recording this and when I'm expecting this to drop, we will be there this weekend. So, guys, if you are in or near Houston and you want to connect, now is the time. I don't even know if they can get tickets at this point. I mean, this thing is going to be busy, busy, busy.
Yeah.
Is it not, Troy?
Yeah. Tony gave me an idea of how many tickets were sold specifically on Saturday. And wow. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Obviously, it's going to be our biggest year by far, attendance wise. You will find me in the film screening room most of the weekend. I hope to have a little bit more of a break from that room this weekend than I have in the past, because I would love to hang out in the main areas and mingle with fellow horror fans that I only see once a year. And Roger, your film Meat is screening there Saturday night. That is going to be a blast. I'm really looking forward to that. We have our award ceremony that I'll host on Sunday morning, and it's just going to be a blast. I get in Thursday morning. We'll have Thursday to prep the film room, and the action starts at 4 p.m. on Friday. We will be there. So if you are coming to the Houston Horror Film Festival, come find us and say hi.
Uh-huh.
And yes, this episode will be dropped by then, as long as we keep it short and not 5 hours, because I have to edit it before we get to the,
Well, and Troy's a working woman now. Troy's back to work too, so we got to respect the lady's time and not give her something too wordy here. So we'll keep it tight. We'll keep it simple. If there's ever a film to keep brief, it is indeed going to be Beware Children at Play, 1989. This is a trauma film. Not surprised. I'm not surprised after watching this movie. This screams trauma. This is indie filmmaking at its most indie. Weird edits, blurry out of focus footage, bad MIDI MIDI tracks, whatever you call them, just sounding like they're from a Casio keyboard. The music in this film, this whole thing is just reeks of indie filmmaking. I want to say it's endearing. Kudos to them for making the film, but there are aspects of this film where technically it's really hard to look past some of the glaring issues. There are times that you see boom mics in the shot. There are moments where people are supposed to be dead and you see their chests clearly moving. All of the flaws and the flubs that you would look for from a lowbrow trauma production, you're getting them here in spades.
Yes, and the effects. The special effects in this film, particularly during that final massacre scene, are laughable. You get the whole thing where like someone pretends to put a machete through a body by just like sliding it past their side, and it's so obvious that's what they're doing. But I know the ending of this film is very well known. Like I remember like in the early ages of the internet and going viral, this ending went viral and people were like, oh, what movie is that? What movie is that? Well, this is it. And yes, you get this ending, but you got to get through the whole rest of the movie to get to it. And I'm going to tell you, I knew I was in trouble with this opening scene. An opening scene that it goes on for far too long to get to the point. I mean, you get the film opens with this kid, this awkward child running through the woods. He's supposed to look scared, I guess. And there's a grown man chasing him, telling him that Grendel the cannibal wants his 8-year-old blood. Catches up to the kid, throws him down on the ground, and we've come to find out that it's just a father and son. And apparently, Roger, for fun, this father takes this kid into the woods and terrorizes him, chases him around town. He wants to eat him.
Just harasses his son, filling him with terror. I guess, yeah, you know, the movie opens, you got like a bright caution yellow title card. It's subtle. Like, so the film gets a rolling, and from the first shot, you got this slider shot of the kid running, and I was like, oh, okay. This is low budget, but they're going to give it their all. So how quickly this film falls apart to pieces. But at first I was like, this is endearing, I guess, like a father-son duo, and it's cute. They're playing the guitar and singing together. That kid has that solo. Like I normally try to replicate a bad vocal performance, but I couldn't do it justice. This kid, I can't even understand what words are coming out of his mouth, but it is just, it is hard to listen to. And the scenario is he and his father, they're camping together, and his dad is based off his dialogue alone, the word choices coming out of his mouth, especially as he starts to lose his mind here in a moment. It's just really weird dialogue. It's really specific, literal or literature-based dialogue, which does come into play here. It's explained as to why, but it's really heavy-handed. And through a series of events, the dad ends up getting his foot caught in a bear trap, and things just do not go well for this father-son duo at all.
The song that the boy sings, Roger, it's I've been to the wild woods, father. I've been to the wild woods, father. Much worse, if you can believe it. And this kid is like staring deadpan into the camera while he's saying it with his buck teeth and
dead-eyed. The deadest of eyes.
But yes, they come to the woods. I will say, yes, the father, this is a weird relationship to take your kid on a camping trip only to chase him around the woods, saying you want to drink his blood and gulp his bones and crush his skull. But when they interact as father and son, I will say it's quite endearing. Like I kind of bought it. I bought that these two were like father and son until the father, yes, because the next day chases the kid around, gets his foot caught in a bear trap. And he's like, oh, you got to listen to me. You got to go back to the camp and get food and supplies. This man and this child literally lay at this log for days. And I kept asking myself, why isn't this kid going for help? They're obviously close to a McDonald's because it's mentioned earlier when they're sitting around the campfire that they're going to go to McDonald's earlier. Instead of sitting there saying they're letting us die, nobody's coming for us, and getting maggots, we get that close-up shot of maggots all over his leg. Why wouldn't you send your kid to get help? Tell your kid, run for the road. You remember where we parked? Go back there.
They make it sound like they're trapped in the middle of like Witch Mountain. Like, I mean, like, but really, like, honestly, I'm never seeing anything that gives me the impression that they're out like in an area where like they're that far from civilization. Like it seems to me there's paths going through the woods, and I just think this child could probably have successfully gotten help. But no, apparently the father just spirals into insanity until he tells the child to cannibalize his corpse, and the kid willingly does it and rips his father's heart out with a smile on his face. It gets real weird real fast.
I mean, this came out of nowhere. Like the father keeps mentioning how the woods they're cursed, and the darkness is going to bring a demon that's eager to kill, and you got to cast away the demon. And he tries one more time to get out of this trap, and then just like drops dead. And not seconds pass before the kid takes a hunting knife and proceeds to gut his father and rip his heart out while he's saying, rip through the flesh, bite through the bones, gulp the blood. And then he holds it up and takes a bite out of it. How did this happen within a matter of 5 days? I don't understand. And I don't understand why you would not send your kid for help instead of just letting yourself die there with him. It's so odd.
This kid's character arc is very confusing. I mean, you go from 0 to 50 with this child real fast because, as far as I'm concerned, this is a very normal, average, everyday, horrible vocalist child who just is hanging out with his dad, and like, I guess a couple days in the wilderness is enough to break you. I love during that moment where he goes to cut this, like the dad open, you can see the seam in the makeup effect. You can see the seam in the torso where he's going to cut. You can see it pre-placed there. It's the makeup here, they're definitely trying, but also the leg that's severed in the bear trap. It is this massive leg, this huge bulky leg that's completely almost severed from the rest of the body. It looks so wild, but it is gratuitous. It's very gory. That maggot shot, it did make my skin crawl, but this is it. This is the setup. And they're so quick with this like weird convoluted dialogue that the dad is spewing that's tied to Beowulf. And so there's this running theme of both literature and like the influence of literature and also religious text that comes into play. But these are two very different things. And so it's really confusing. It is confusing. What is exactly the running theme here? Because the dialogue, the talk of demons comes up. It's said multiple times that the townspeople believe in demons. This whole subplot about the brownies that comes into play here. But then also there's a very much just a very reasonable explanation to me without anything fantastical to it at all about what happens here and what causes things to the events to transpire. This kid is left up in the woods. I guess he just lives up there, but he's not that far from reality. Like he's able to come back down, we come to find. So like, I don't understand why this child didn't just wander back to civilization and say, hey, my dad died. Can somebody help me? Instead, he just chooses to live in the woods, I suppose. It's very confusing.
Just get crazier by the year to the point where he's able to become like a cult leader and convince other children very quickly to kill adults. It's all, So yes, the opening scene, it goes on. This opening scene goes on for quite a while. It's about a 12-minute opening scene. But once the kid kills his father, we cut to 10 years later, and we got John, his wife, Julie, and their daughter, Kara, are driving to town to meet and visit his friend that he hasn't seen for a long time. The kid has to shit. She tells us many times that she has to shit, and they're just like ignoring her. This wife, I don't know how he's married to this broad. All she does is nag at him. Apparently he's an author, and in order to become successful, he decided to start writing about like paranormal stuff, like UFO encounters, ghosts, and his publisher proceeded to give all of these books sexually provocative covers, and the wife is just bitching at him the entire road trip about these covers and how could you, and he tells her, well, you certainly enjoy the money that comes from these books. All she does is bitch. It's also casually mentioned that his friend's daughter Amy disappeared mysteriously 3 years ago. And it's kind of the reason why the friend invited him to come visit him, because he knows that he's sort of an expert, quote unquote, in paranormal UFO abductions, disappearances.
The car dialogue between this family goes on for what feels forever. And it's weird. Again, the literature element of all of this. Julie, we find out, is an English professor. And so her dialogue, when Julie talks, she's using all of these like big flowery words, lurid and trivial and ghastly and garish, to describe the covers of John's books, which she thinks are lowbrow. But the way the dialogue's written, it just feels extremely unnatural. It very much sounds like they're reading a script from like a stage production. And it's not even to say like that, at least when it comes to these two parental figures, which are John and Julie, it's not like either of them are the worst actors in the film. They're not awful. I mean, they're very much like indie film actors, but they're not horrible. But the dialogue is just increasingly unnatural, especially for Julie, I feel. I think that the women in this film, across the board, all of the women in this film get like the shit end of the stick here, from the way they talk to the way they respond to their outcomes overall. I just think this is a very, it's not a feminist film at all. The way the women are handled here, they're just very disposable. But yeah, I found the dialogue here just to be startlingly like over the top, and it goes on just for way too long. It's just weird. It's a weird note to introduce these characters on, and then they end up stumbling upon this character, which is this Franklin here in a moment, where they find this car pulled over on the side of the road, and there's this startle moment where this kid runs across the street. They almost hit this child, and so it's a little bit of a jump, but it's not executed great. I feel like one of the biggest problems here is a lot of the startles or scares, or even like the attack scenes. It's the editing. I don't think there's a single kill in this film that I would say is edited well. Even if they do pull off the makeup effects, it's like the way they cut, like there's a shot of a blade raising up, and then you have a really bad reaction shot, and then you can't even tell if the blade has made impact. It just, there's so many moments like this throughout the whole course of the film that I do feel like the editing here is especially bad.
Yes. Editing, the script is so dense. Like, it is so dense. The script is way more wordy and like you said, flowery language that it needs to be. I mean, folks, at the end of the day, this is a trauma film. Like, come on. So they meet this Ludwig, who's Franklin Ludwig, who's pulled over on the side of the road, who is a Bible salesman. They talk about a fucking dialogue that goes on even longer. I mean, these two have a conversation on the side of the road that just goes on and on and on. And you subtly get some hints about like what's going on in the town, because John tells Ludwig, when he finds out Ludwig sells Bibles, he's like, oh no, we're not religious. And Ludwig proceeds to tell him, well, don't tell people around here that, because this town still has some religious zealots in it. And in the past, these people have killed others because they don't believe in what they believe in. So you got to be really careful around here. He mentions brownies, which I guess is what these religious zealots were called, that murdered people. And he also mentions that many people have gone missing in the last few years, particularly kids. And John and Julia get on their way because Kara still has to shit. She's hanging out the window saying it hurts so because she has to shit so bad.
Daddy, I gotta shit. I have to shit so bad, Daddy. I would like that dialogue better than what we're subjected to with this fucking family.
But then when they pull away, there's that real cheesy moment where Ludwig's there's by himself getting in his car, and you have that bush that starts to shake.
Oh my God. The ominous looming bushes in this film.
Yeah.
Where the children, they're like, I don't even know what the fuck's going on. They're like conjuring shit or something. But these kids, you always know they're coming because you see bushes quivering when they're present. These kids, and that's the thing, is how the fuck these townspeople have not found these children is beyond me. These kids are not subtle. These kids are not master survivalists if you will. These are literally children who are lured from their homes and then brainwashed by that kid Glenn. Like this, I'm just saying what happens. He tells them basically that they need to come live with him and that they're going to be cannibals. That's the outcome here. It's not like these kids have a whole lot of training on how to live in the wilderness. So they're leaving breadcrumbs everywhere. But then when you finally find out where these kids are, it's like how someone did not find these children. They're clearly not putting a lot of effort into it because they're right down the lane. They're in a massive clearing. They're in a huge clearing that from a helicopter you could absolutely see this commune that these children have created.
Yeah, it's not far. It's right beyond Braun's farm. Like that's the biggest issue I have with this film. It's my biggest note is there is this town with 13 children that have gone missing in 3 years. I'm sorry, you don't all seem to give a fuck about these kids because any sort of search would have found them. I mean, they are living in a field with tents. I mean, they're sneaking in and stealing people's pies. They're close enough that, they can go and, hang out on the side of the road. That's the biggest fallacy with this film is these kids would have been found. This isn't Children of the Corn. I mean, it wants to be Children of the Corn, right down to some specific dialogue and shots, particularly the one you mentioned with the kid running out into the middle of the street. It's very similar to the shot in the opening of Children of the Corn. But yeah, these kids would have been totally found. So John and Julie get to Ross's place. We find out Ross is the sheriff, and fucking Kara, now she doesn't have to shit. She mentions she wants to play with the daughters, and one of them is Amy, and that upsets Ross. So Julie has to apologize because again, remember, Amy went missing 3 years ago. She's literally living a half a block away. Her dad's a sheriff, hasn't found her.
Her dad is a sheriff, but he is clearly not the best sheriff. And the townspeople all know it. They acknowledge it. So he's really failing. He just does not care his daughter's missing, I'm assuming, because it should be very easy for him to find her. But I do want to acknowledge with Ludwig very quick. One thing I'm going to try to dig up compliments here. I love the dialogue that they have about like the religious nuts in the town and how nobody in that conversation is religious and everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm not religious. And Julie's like, yeah, no, I'm an English professor. So the only way I know anything about the Bible is because I have to. But I like how everyone's unanimously like, yeah, no, they're all crazy. Ludwig's like, the only reason I'm selling these Bibles is because they will give me a $5 bill for anyone or anything. I sell them. If I say it's religious, they'll bust out cash for it right away and pay for it because it's that easy, And so I think that little bit there, I was really intrigued by that, but it's not explored very much at all because as soon as the family gets to the house and you're introduced to Ross, you cut back to Ludwig, who sees Isaac wandering in the fields and he goes to follow him. And immediately Ludwig is unceremoniously scythed to death out of nowhere.
You get the bushes shaken and the laughter.
You get the bushes.
Then he turns around and you just see a shot of a scythe raise, it come down, his reaction, a shot of him on the ground. You see the scythe raise again. And then when he tries to back away, we see that he's cut in half. And you see this big hollow paper mache torso.
Oh God, this effect is absurd. I give him credit for doing it. You see him start to drag himself away. Like it's fun. It really is. But yeah, it's pretty clear that you're in for a trip with this film because these makeup effects are leaving something to be desired. Also, did you know all that? Did you acknowledge all of that out of focus footage and that whole conversation, that back and forth dialogue that he had with the family earlier? Like the amount of severely out of focus footage in this film is distracting. It really is. There are so many shots in this movie that are out of focus, and they, I guess, didn't film enough to have backup solutions. And so you're just subjected to big sequences of dialogue, people having big conversations, and it keeps cutting to a shot that's just really out of focus. It drives me crazy.
Well, I have a feeling that a lot of this film was one take. Because I don't know if you also noticed something that I noticed is there's several moments in the film where actors flub a line and have to start over, but it's not cut out. In fact, Ludwig does it in the scene where he's talking to the family. He mispronounces a word and he has to start over, but they don't cut it out. I swear to God, everything was in one take. Yeah, so Ludwig is the first one to go with the scythe. We go back to Ross's house, and there's a doctor there, Dr. Fish, who is supposed to be helping Amy's mom, Cleo, come to terms with her disappearance. Again, it's been 3 years, for crying out loud. And so Dr. Fish has this whole a conversation with John where he also brings up that he's a fan of his writing, but not a fan of the book covers. So Julie's like, oh, I got the last laugh. Ross reveals to them that Amy is not the only girl to go missing. And in the last 3 years, 12 kids have gone missing without a trace, he says. Without a trace. Okay. Amy was the first, but there's been one kid going missing every 2 months. And it's the reason that Ross invited him here, because there's no other clues. There's nothing else. He explicitly says, we as a police department have exhausted our resources. And so we had to bring you here because you write about this stuff. I'm like, no, the kids are right in your backyard. They have to know something's going on because they have that fence built and every time he hears a noise in the woods, he screams out there, I want my daughter back. So he obviously knows or thinks she's out in the woods. Has he not gone out to look for her?
Exhausted our resources. What about the FBI? I'm sure they would have found those children. If you and your incompetent police force can't do it, you're going to ask your friend who writes books on UFOs to lure his mind-reading cohort out here, and that's going to solve something instead of getting, I don't know, the government involved. You've got now what is going to be 13 missing children, and you're telling me you have exhausted all of your resources. That doesn't make sense. But okay, we're going to roll with it here with Beware Children at Play. So yeah, we also meet Cleo. Let's talk about Cleo, crazy Cleo. So, I mean, at least Julie is sensible. Julie Demure, she's so offended by everything about John, what he does, his books, his lurid books. And then you meet Cleo. She comes out and she's fucking losing her shit. Still hasn't gotten over losing her daughter 3 years ago, Amy. And she goes from like being like perfectly hospitable to be like having a breakdown at the blink of an eye. So these are the women we're dealing with. Cleo is not what I would say is like a strong female character. Some of the choices they make here with the women involving these two specifically really pisses me off. Really pisses me off.
Yeah. Well, Cleo gets mad because she hears Ross basically tell John, the real reason I invited you here because you wrote a book about a mind reader who is able to help police solve crimes. And I want to know if she's real. And if she is, can you get her here? Cleo overhears that. She's like, mind readers? Your daughter's missing. Why aren't you out there looking for her? What kind of father are you? And I'm like, well, yeah, you're kind of being a bitch, but I have to agree with you because your daughter is literally a half mile down the road in a tent.
And regularly comes back to the house, like takes your pies and like these children, they're omnipresent. The kids are always looming, eating people. I think it should be a lot easier to discover where these children are. Meanwhile, sweet Mary Rose, the other child, fills Kara in on the woodies, which are the things that live in the woods, including Amy. And that's foreboding. But one thing that really gets me confused is they talk about the brownies, which is this KKK-like group that apparently is living in these parts. And then you got the woodies, which are the children gang that's eating people living in the woods. And it's just all very confusing. I don't know if these things intersect. I don't know if they're supposed to be one thing or the same or completely separate. But it's just one more thing that you have to like soak up and be like, oh, okay, I guess this makes sense. It doesn't. It's very confusing.
Well, if Mary Rose knows that her sister is a Woody, why doesn't she tell her dad? I mean, it's so nonsensical. Woodies. I just get a kick out of that. Woodies. Okay. Yeah. Dr. Fish basically wants to ask John, I need to know, did you really research your books or are they just a bunch of bullshit? Because Sheriff Ross is my friend and I need he really believes that you could bring this medium here and solve the disappearance of his daughter. But all of a sudden, you hear the kids laugh, like right in the woods behind them. And Ross looks into the woods and screams, I want my daughter back, God damn it. Then go look for her. She's right there. Like, the seconds this movie goes by, it pisses me off more that they're acting like these kids have vanished into thin air when they are all around. Like, it's fucking stupid.
Curious, do you think Dr. Fish is a homosexual man? I think he is. He very much gives gay undertones to me.
He's wearing those tight dress pants here in a few scenes, and I gotta say, that one scene where they're in the police station and he's watching that medium and he's wearing those tight dress pants, he's actually looking pretty good. I'm like, okay, Dr. Fish,
it's slim pickings here. As beware the children at play. We'll take Dr. Fish.
When we're lusting over Dr. Fish, it's slim pickings because there ain't nobody else.
I also like that he saunters in and he's like, Cleo's fine. I gave her a shot. She'll be okay. And I'm like, you're just giving this woman, she starts to have a manic break and you just give her a shot and she just put to bed. Like, it's just very much like a toss away comment, but okay.
So the next day, this group is gathered in front of the sheriff's office because we find out another townsfolk's daughter, 8-year-old daughter, has gone missing. Peter Gordon's 8-year-old daughter has gone missing. And there's this bossy, just bitchy female reporter that this blonde, I don't even know what her name, Miss Hawthorne, I think is her name. She just demands answers. She's like, Sheriff, you're worthless. This is a 13th kid that go missing. What are you going to do? She's very like sarcastic with him and she's getting the crowd riled up. And then she's like, oh, I see you invited your mystic friend here to help you. Instead of going out and finding the daughter yourself, how many more kids need to go missing? And she's getting them all riled up.
She's a real cunt, that Miss Hawthorne. The moment I saw her, I was like, God, I hope she dies horribly. I was honestly hoping, because this movie is, again, it's very much, the women are not treated with care here. So I was like, God, I hope one of the men just hits this woman, like, which is a horrible thing to want. But this character, this Miss Hawthorne, is a tough pill to swallow. Isaac Brown is being interviewed by the detectives following his son going missing, and he claims that he has seen him since. So John theorizes that the children's disappearances are tied to the kids like going missing, going underground. That's the whole thing that does kind of carry over with the Brownies, this whole idea that they were this underground cult kind of that was operating this area. So he's starting to theorize that the kids could in fact be involved with that group, which does tie those themes in a little bit, but it's very kind of weird. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No, and Ross tries to tell John, we don't really need to go talk to him because he's just a religious nut. And John insists, he's like, no, we need to talk to him. I want to find out what's going on. They go to his farm and John right away notices a car like behind the barn covered with a tarp. So he goes back to investigate that while Sheriff Ross is like, why are you telling people you saw your son? If you saw your son, why didn't you go after him? He's like, well, that's not my son. And Sheriff Ross is like, what do you mean? And he says, goblins and giants who battle with God. And then all of a sudden, Braun's like, get off my property or I'm going to call the police. I'm like, how are you calling the police when the sheriff is right there? But they leave. And when they're in the car, John tells Sheriff that something's fishy because the car that was behind the barn was Ludwig's, the Bible salesman. And he does not think that Braun seems nice enough to invite this Bible salesman onto his property willingly. So they need to check out whether Braun ever made it back to his Bible selling shop.
So why is Ludwig's car on Braun's property? Like, Braun is not working alongside the kids.
No, it makes zero sense.
It makes no sense at all. So I don't understand how that even gets there.
Later in the film, Miss Hawthorne's car ends up there too because John takes it. So Braun, my thought is, because we don't want to jump way too far ahead, but Braun is a character who knows what's going on. he's figured it out. He figures it out, and he leads the whole charge against like destroying the demons. So I'm assuming he's just kind of laying low, and he knows what's going on, but he's waiting for like, the right moment to rile everybody up, and the right like incident to get people needing to go along with him. How willingly people go along with killing each other in this film is pretty easy. Like, it doesn't take much convincing for people to stab their own children and kill their own parents in this film.
I want to acknowledge like the dialogue that comes out of Braun specifically. Like, so he's a religious fanatic and he starts spewing proverbs. I don't know, something about giants in the sky and all this nonsense. And it's extremely similar to some of the dialogue that we heard earlier in the film coming from Glenn, the kid, where he's talking about all the monsters and the ghosties and the spookies and the things that keep us up at night. You know, they're going back and forth with this dialogue that's, I mean, I think clearly rooted in Beowulf, the dad's knowledge of Beowulf. This is something he's obviously very interested in. And so he shares that with his son. And I think that's where his son soaks up a lot of this information and why the son eventually grows up the way he does under this understanding of all of this kind of literature that the dad kind of bestowed this knowledge upon him because the dad was so invested in it, you know. But I think there's a lot of similarities between the dialogue with the dad and the son and what we hear come from Isaac, which is, you know, very much religious context. And I'm curious if that was, I'm giving this film way too much credit, but I wonder if that was almost kind of a take, if you will, acknowledging that there's not a lot of differences between the fantastical epic literature that we've grown up reading and understanding, these classics like Beowulf that at one time I think had a lot more impact and meaning behind it, and the Bible, which is, you know, in a lot of ways it's very fantastical, you know, and there's a lot of stories in the Bible that are nonsensical and similar to these grand epics, these stories like Beowulf that are very much fantastical. And I wonder if that was in a way almost like intentional, kind of dig at religious text and how we take it so seriously and we become so infatuated with it and rooted in it that it determines our lives and how we operate and how this community, this is a very much a religious, like they say it, like this town is rooted in Christianity. And I wonder if that's a kind of almost a take on saying just how these people are just fanatics of just yet another book, you know, in a way. You get what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if I'm reading into that too deep, but I feel like there's connected themes there.
I do. I agree with you. I am going to give the film credit because I do think that's what they were trying to do. They went about it very clunkily. It's not as obvious or seamless as it could have been in the hands of a better scriptwriter, but I really do think that's what they're trying to do. There is a very strong correlation in this film between Beowulf, you know, Anglo literature, ancient literature, and the Bible. And the two come to head at the end of the film. And I think that's very purposeful. And you even have Julie, who says that she's not religious at all, but she does teach the New Testament of the Bible as a piece of literature and not as fact. So I do think that they were trying to do that. I just wish that the screenwriters had a little bit more finesse in their writing style, and the film had a lot bigger budget behind it, because that is something that is very quite an interesting theme to explore for a trauma film, you know?
Yeah. And not just the correlation, but also what it takes for someone to take that text and manipulate it. And, you know, I think the character of Glenn, like as a child, you know, he becomes trapped in the woods. He learns to fend for himself, and the understanding he has, the last thing he remembers is the dialogue that his father kind of like bestowed upon him, which was from Beowulf. So for him, he almost lives by that. You know, the character of Glenn, in a way, that becomes his religion. Like, and I'm jumping ahead here too, but when we're talking about, you know, connecting the themes here, I think we're giving this a lot of credit. And I do think that in the hands of a more skilled scriptwriter, that could have been explored a lot more it could be a lot more coherent for us as an audience, but I do think that's actually quite an interesting concept to tap on there, to touch on. And the idea that, if you get enough people to read anything and believe it has power and meaning behind it, that you can brainwash people. That's really what they're talking about. Like the mob here in this town and the mob of children that exist on the outskirts of this town, both of them are brainwashed by different forms of text, different, pieces of literature here, and they both use it for negative purposes.
Yeah, the only difference is that Glenn believes himself to be Grindel. That's how the kids in the cult refer to him, Grindel, who is the villain, who is a monster. So on one hand, you have one of the cult leaders very openly embracing the dark, demonic, evil side. And then you have Braun, who is representing the heavy religious, biblical side, who thinks he's doing something good. Like he thinks he's embracing the good, but in fact, you realize he's not any better. He thinks he's better, but he's not. It's real interesting. Again, we may be giving this film way too much credit, but hey, it's an interesting conversation to have. So Braun gets back to his house. We do realize he's married to this woman. And she tells him, she's like, I don't know why you're so upset. I don't blame the sheriff for questioning you. How could you see our son and not go fetch him? And he's like, that wasn't our son. He's not our son anymore. She's like, I'm scared and I know you know what's going on. And all he says to her is, he's like, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And then we see someone like come up to her windowsill and steal her fucking pie.
Chubby, cherubic hands stealing pies. That would be me stealing pies. I'd be the one kid that they're like, don't go down there. You can't go down there. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I'd like be sneaking away and eating the pies from people's windows. So I get it. It's probably that one really chubby child. I mean, there is one kid that sticks out. And listen, no shame here, but these kids are eating well. Like these kids no one's living up there eating twigs and berries. These kids are feasting. And they look like it. There's one thick young child who really I'm like, wow, the woods have been treating you well, my friend. I mean, healthy like a horse.
What's husky? Isn't that what the size you used to have to get at Sears if you were over a chubby child? Husky. We have to buy husky.
Yeah. Everything I had was husky, and my mom was always like, "We gotta get you the huskies." And be like, "Oh boy!" As an 8-year-old, I don't know what this means, but it's ruining my life. We poor Cleo, man. Cleo's about to have another manic
She
moment.
is, because and Julie's just trying to be nice. They're watching the kids play, and then all of a sudden, like Cleo has a breakdown and starts screaming at Julie about, why are you even here? And why does John write those horrible books that hurt people? And Kara just wanders in. I'm assuming this child is shit already, because again, that's her whole personality in the first half hour of the film is she has to shit. She comes waltzing in. Apparently, because Cleo is arguing with Julie, they took their eyes off the kids. Kara comes in and tells them that she has no one to play with anymore because Mary Rose was taken by the Woodies. And they go outside and they see a hole in the fence. And Cleo just starts fucking screaming. Ross rushes in. He's like, John, you need to get that medium here. We need her ASAP. Does Ross even run into those woods to find that child? She's only been missing a minute. Instead, he runs into John and's like, get the medium. Bitch, your ass should be in those woods. You're the sheriff. Why aren't you going after your fucking daughter?
Getting this medium is not a solution for anything. And it's not even like getting the medium does anything to benefit anybody. It doesn't. This poor medium is lured to this bumfuck town. This gal, Alice, gets lured to this town, and before she can work her magic, she's quickly disposed of. Let's be clear. So I don't understand, when they were writing this script, I don't understand why they thought they had to bring this medium in at all. She really doesn't do anything, but Ross is sure determined that somehow she is going to be the solution here. He really is a horrible sheriff.
Oh, he's terrible. Before we get to the medium, you do get a scene with Julie in bed at that evening after poor Mary Rose has gone missing and nobody's bothering looking for her. And she's grilling John about how he could turn this tragedy into a circus. And he basically tells her, finally, he tells her to shut the fuck up. He's like, Julie, I've had enough of your bullshit. Shut up. I've researched my books heavily. And then she's like, you need to grow up. Why are they all just going to bed when this 8-year-old child has just disappeared? Nobody gives a shit.
No panic. It's not like people are going into the woods. There's no search parties. Nobody even ventures into the woods to look for the child. And it's very clear the child's been taken into the woods. Also, let's acknowledge some of this dialogue. One of John's responses to Julie is, and I quote, I don't understand, Julie. You teach poetry, and yet you lack the faculty of wonder. What the fuck? What? Like, what are you saying? Like, the faculty of wonder. Who's writing this? What linguist sat down and scribed this fucking script? One thing I know, the guy that plays Isaac is the director. I bet you he wrote it too. I bet you anything is all him, because he sure likes giving himself big moments in this movie. But also the dialogue is shit. And I don't understand what any of it means. But yeah, nobody is at all concerned. Coming to this town with my daughter, big shit Kara, the one that's always dumping, that kid. If I brought my child to this town and I found out that kids were just disappearing willy-nilly into the night, like, and nobody cares about it, no one's saying anything. Well, I mean, people are saying shit, but they sure aren't doing anything. I'd be like, I'm getting the fuck out. I'm letting my kid take a shit, and then we're hitting the road and pack the fiber because we're leaving, and I am not staying here for a moment longer. But they're just cool and collect. They're staying in this town where children go missing into the night, and no one's concerned.
Not a soul. Not a soul. Okay, so the next day at the sheriff's office, we meet this medium named Alice. She has Mary Rose's doll, and she's trying to get a vibration from it, but she needs a nap first. They flew this broad in from somewhere, and she's like, you know what? I'm too tired. I need rest first. And they're like, are you serious? And she's like, well, yeah, but I can tell you your daughter's still alive, dearie. I have to acknowledge she calls everyone dearie. Everyone's dearie. Everything's dearie. This broad
10 times over, by the way.
Bless
10
her,
times over.
Yeah, bless her heart for trying to be an actress. I don't know if she's done anything else, but I got the distinct impression that they were trying to replicate, pay homage to, rip off the whole medium from Witchboard. This like the quirky redhead that comes in and has all these quirks.
Yeah.
I really got that impression. That's what they were going for here.
Girl cannot act her way out of a paper bag. They got her looking like Miss Cleo with a head wrap. And like, I really feel like they grabbed some random poor woman off the street and they put a shawl on her and they said, we need you to deliver some lines. I mean, she's giving it her all, but and my complaint really isn't even her. She definitely says dearie way too many times to be at all acceptable. But my issue is just really, you're going to introduce this character and you're just going to not let this at all influence the storyline. Like, really, this character should have come in and should have had an impact. And what we have here is she goes to take a nap because she's tired. And Ross is like, we need you now to use your mind reader powers to find the children because that's a solution. And she's like, no, I must nap. But, when she wakes back up, it looks like she's sure, like, Margaret Hamilton style trying to use her powers. She's looking over a crystal ball with this stuffed doll, like just standing there. Like, I guess she thinks she's got powers. It's not like this woman. It's not like this woman goes back to her hotel for her sabbatical and she's like, oh, these morons, little do they know that I'm actually lying about everything and there's no powers, and then she's disposed of. No, when we see this woman next after her nap, she's clearly like trying to put her psychic powers to use, and it's just very weird. It's all very weird.
But then who shows up at her door to get her doll back? Fucking Mary Rose. And
goddamn Mary Rose.
She follows Mary. She gives Mary Rose the doll and follows Mary Rose into the woods. And she's like, "Dearie, slow down, dearie. I can't keep up with you, dearie. Dearie, slow down." Even though she's literally a foot behind her the whole time, the girl's not sprinting, but she keeps saying, "Dearie, I can't keep up with you." And she gets into an opening with this little Mary Rose. Keep in mind, Roger, Mary Rose has been missing one day. Okay. Yeah. That's it. So in one night, they've been able to brainwash Mary Rose into being a cannibal because all of a sudden these kids come out of the bushes and like start throwing shit at this medium. And she's like, "Dearies, stop it, dearies. Dearies, leave me alone. You stop that." And like one of them pushes her down. And then that older, like teenage looking girl one comes behind her, like slits her throat. And then they start stabbing her and devouring her. And in the meantime, you get this random couple who are fucking in a car that's parked on the side of the road that hear the commotion. So the girl just wants to fuck. Like she wants to fuck. And the guy, and I can see why, because the guy's pretty hot. The guy gets out. He's like, "No, we got to go check." So you get this random couple run into the woods and they see the kids like eating this woman. Now
it's that easy.
Here's the problem. Whenever you get a film, especially a low budget indie film, Roger, with kids, you're in for horrendous acting. And this scene, you have these kids after they pretend to stab, because you get a lot of pretend stabs in this film. The kids are just you can totally tell the knife didn't even hit but you get this whole moment where the kids are staring straight into the camera saying, "Pound her flesh, gulp her blood, ground her bones, pound her flesh." And they're all giving it their all. You got that chubby one, you got that albino looking one. They're just all just deadpan into the camera. Some of them can't help but smirk because they know what they're doing is so fucking ridiculous. It really ruins any sort of scare or fear that I'm supposed to get from these kids.
These are the least intimidating looking children ever. And I love that the couple just stumbles upon them. Again, these kids are not discreet. They're literally on a hiking path eating this poor woman. And this couple just stumbles upon them and they're like, "Oh my God." And the kids all just scream and slowly waddle off into the woods. They just all like stumble away. And then the girl's like screaming and everything, but it is not scary at all. I feel like these kids could be easily disposed of. And they are eventually. But yeah, it's a very lackluster moment. I'm sorry, you're telling me you're going to introduce that gal, though, and give us this big psychic buildup, only for her to just get her throat cut and her guts pulled out, and that's that. And really, like, it was that easy. This couple's just fucking in the woods. You think these kids would just be a little more like aware of things? Like, I don't know, set up a trap and capture Alice and then drag her back to your lair or something like that. But just to be out in the middle of the open, in the middle of the daylight, eating this woman, all 10 of you, gnawing on her, and this couple just walks upon you and finds you like that, no problem at all. I don't understand how people have not detected them.
No. The kids take off running. They don't try to kill the couple. They just take off running into the woods, leaving poor Alice there with her guts hanging out and her liver half ate. And then I love that moment where the older girl, like Mary Rose, is standing there. And the older girl has a piece of Alice's liver and she's like, "Here, try this. It's good." And Mary Rose takes it. She's like, "Okay." It's like, you've been missing not even a full 24 hours and you're a cannibal already. Like,
oh yeah, and just like, and she's so like comfortable and confident in it. She's like, "Okay." She's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll eat this woman." Like, I mean, like, yeah, it doesn't take much to talk this group of children into eating people.
We miss the moment at Bronze where him and his wife are inside and they hear laughing and the wife thinks it's Jamie. She's like, "Jamie, is that you?" That's their son. And Braun's like, "You don't go out there, woman." And she says, I want my son. He's like, "You mind me." And the bitch doesn't. She runs right outside. The minute she gets outside, Roger, you hear her scream. And does he get up to go help his wife? Nope, he just sits there and recites the Lord's Prayer, just lets his wife be brutally murdered.
This poor woman, and it's so quick. The woman like goes outside, and within seconds, you just hear a shriek, and he just is accepting of it. And then that fucking blonde broad, Miss Hawthorne, comes trucking up, and at first I didn't know who it was because she's suddenly donning a sensible ponytail. But she shows up, and she's walking around the house. She's calling for Isaac, asking him about questions about like if he really saw his son, and he's not responding. So she goes around to the back of the house, and she sees, I will say this moment's pretty cool, she sees in the distance in the corn the silhouette of the wife, and you've got that cool shot, it's from a distance where you see the wife from far away, and you see Miss Hawthorne walking up through the corn, and I thought that was kind of a cool shot. And I will say this is probably my favorite moment of gore in the film, what you end up seeing here. And that ain't saying much, let's be clear. The gore here leaves a lot to be desired. And this mannequin, even the wig color is different. The wife had gray hair, the mannequin is brown, but you get this reveal here of Miss Hawthorne walking around the wife only to realize that she's very much dead, and her face is kind of mauled up and there's rats crawling all over it. And while she looks rubbery and while it looks fake, there's still something really shocking about the visual. Like, I really liked it. So for a moment I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. But then like Miss Hawthorne just takes off running away from her car. And I'm like, what? Wait, what? Go back to your car. And she just runs off into the woods. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why are you doing that?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Bitch, your car is right there. Instead, she runs right to the woods. Now, earlier, Miss Hawthorne showed up at the location where Alice was found because now everyone in town knows that the kids are eating people because the couple's there, the sheriff's there, the couple's telling the sheriff what the kids were chanting, and Miss Hawthorne shows up and she's antagonizing him even more, and she tells John, well, congratulations on your next bestseller. He's like, that was my friend. And she's like, what, friends can't be bestsellers? And the townspeople are all riled up, and Miss Hawthorne's antagonizing them. She's like, what are you going to do, Sheriff? If you don't do something, that you have a whole town full of scared people. And the townsfolk's like, yeah, we'll do something ourselves if you can't handle it. And then Miss Hawthorne decides to ride out to Bruns. And yeah, she gets there. She finds Miss Bruns. She runs into the woods. These two kids see her coming. And at the exact moment, they're like, now. And they stand up and they have this long board that has spikes, wooden spikes protruding from it. She runs right into it and impales her. She falls on the thing. And you can see when she falls how rubbery they are because they shake back and forth. But at least Miss Hawthorne's dead. This bitch doesn't have to show up antagonizing people anymore.
Yeah, and this like kill of her like running into these like speared wooden contraption is like kind of cool. I mean, I was really hoping to get more of a chase. If you're going to run off into the fucking woods instead of going to your car, like at least be pursued. Make it something big and grand. But no, she literally like turns around a bend and she like runs into this fucking contraption and she's dead. So yeah, she was a total bitch. Happy she's dead. I was really hoping that she would get like a Courtney Cox moment in Scream where somebody slapped her or punched her or did something violent to her, but at least she goes out in a rather gratuitous, violent style.
Yeah, I don't know if they eat from her or not, but she's impaled, and they're just like staring down, looking at their handiwork.
She's definitely eaten because she does come back into play later in the film.
Yeah, you're right.
She's eaten.
She's thrown into the barn. Yeah, you're right. Oh boy, this poor woman. So at Ross's, he's asking John if he's sure he doesn't have any idea what the chant the young couple heard means. And, it was gulp their blood, ground their flesh. And Julie is there. And of course, because she is an English literature professor, she is the one now that makes the revelation that it sounds like Beowulf. And it sounds like alliteration, Anglo-Saxon alliteration from Beowulf. Gulp, goblins. And she says, you will find those same words in a story about a monster named Grendel, who was a cannibal. So the guys are all excited. It's the middle of the night. They head to the library, and they make this poor librarian comes in, and she is not happy, but we'll get to that in a second, because Once the guys leave, Cleo comes downstairs and says she can't sleep and she needs to make herself some tea. And you hear this rattling coming up from upstairs. And Julie's like, I told Kara to be quiet. I'm going to fix her. So she goes upstairs to tell Kara to settle down. So before they head to the library, they go to the police station and Dr. Fish is there. And he says he found a file about a professor, English professor named Randall, Professor Randall, who went missing 10 years ago. And he taught medieval and Anglo-Saxon English. All this is coming together so like perfectly now. Now they know about this. How did they not know about it?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Now they didn't know about him going missing with his son 10 years ago, but now they're, oh, okay. So this next scene, I don't know, a choice was made here because back at the house, Cleo has made her tea and she's walking into the living room and she sees Julie coming down the stairs, like stumbling down the stairs, obviously in pain. She's like gurgling and blood is coming out of her mouth. And as she gets to the bottom of the steps, she falls onto Cleo. And we see that her back, I mean, she has been brutally like hacked in the back. There's a giant fucking hole in her back. I didn't really like the Julie character, but this kind of shocked me that they killed her off like this.
Well, and I agree. I don't think that she was necessarily the most likable character, but she wasn't stupid. In fact, they were kind of using her as a tool to explain a lot of the literature elements of what's going on, and which there are plenty. And so it's not like she wasn't serving a purpose. And so for her to just be disposed of like that felt very unceremonious. And I much would have rather had Julie be the one that got more focused than the character of Cleo, who has really only been there to have manic breakdowns on camera. She's literally going back and forth from being pleasant to being completely batshit. And so the decision for her now to become the focus for a little bit was really weird because she's just felt so secondary. Her character has really not felt at all pivotal to the storyline. She very much almost feels like an afterthought. And now she goes upstairs and the kids are there and they're just there and they just mob her. They just mob her. They throw her on the bed. She starts grabbing the bat, swinging at them. Kids are jumping on her back. I mean, this poor woman's getting beat up by a group of just fucking preschoolers, and they're all just going to town, just beating her with rocks, and you could see them laughing and giggling over it. Yeah, it just felt really weird that now suddenly she's having this big moment like this.
At least she's able to hold her own. There's a moment where she is literally swarmed by them. They're on top of her and they're like hitting her, and I thought she was dead, but she gets up and is able to beat them off of her pretty quickly. Did you notice that when the guys are at the library and when the shot comes into focus, you see Ross in the background talking to the librarian, but there's no dialogue?
No, I didn't even notice that.
You have to go back and it's so funny. The librarian is like yelling at him and pointing at him, and her lips are moving, but you don't hear anything, and she's right there. It's so weird. But yeah, so the guys are at the library. They're learning about Grendel and Beowulf, and of course, Ross also found out that Randall disappeared on a camping trip with his 8-year-old son, who was never found. And they conclude that he must somehow be involved. And even John comes to the idea of Glenn Randall. Glenn Randall sounds like Grendel. Glenn Randall, Grendel.
Very on the nose. Very, very on the nose. And I guess you're like supposed to be like, oh, okay. So I guess there's some connectivity there, I guess, which there ends up being like there's, I guess, a purpose behind it. I just don't know how like the kid having the name Glenn Randall, how I would tie it together like, oh, there's something more here. Unless the dad really loved Beowulf so much that he specifically named his child in a way that kind of sounded like it. What is the revelation here? I mean, other than that, the fact like the name sounds similar, there's not some greater meaning to it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, the guy ends up going by the name Grendel, but that's completely by his own decision. It's not tied to his name. I don't know. It's very confusing.
It's real weird. It's like the whole thing, and I still know what you did last summer. Will Benson.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah. Really? So Cleo is able to get away from these kids, And she runs outside. Okay, so this Grindel, this what's his name, Glenn, carries around a giant club that looks like something Bam Bam from the Flintstones carries. And he hits her in the most unconvincing way, literally taps her on the head, and she falls down and she's knocked out.
It is literally like a Halloween, like a Spirit of Halloween store quality plastic. You're right, Bam Bam caveman weapon, and it just looks so fake. And that hit, it's one of the worst hits I've ever seen in a movie ever. She drops like a sack of potatoes, but I don't even think he makes impact with her.
So Braun is riling up a crowd downtown, and he is telling them these kids are demons, and we must don our armor even against these kids. Yes, there are kids, but they are demons now, and they are come in the shape of our children, and we need to defeat them. And you can tell the crowd's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you get this scene of the kids carrying Cleo's knocked out body through the woods on a gurney. They get her to this. Again, they're not that far. You're trying to tell me that these kids are able to carry Cleo, a grown woman, from her house to their camp. It can't be that far then. It can't. But they get her there and they put her in a tent, and she is able to get loose, and she crawls out, and she's going to run away, but she hears more kids coming, so she ducks into another tent, and these kids find her, and all of a sudden all the kids are there staring at her until you get Glenn, who he's what? I guess now he would be, he would be over 18, I'm assuming. Yeah, I guess maybe 18, barely 18. But he comes in, and Roger, he immediately rips her top off, takes her, starts licking her tits, like literally, and he rapes her, he fucks her, as these other kids are just looking on. And you even see like Amy, because Amy is there. And remember, Cleo is her mom. Amy's watching this whole thing unfold. And some moments she's looking surprised. Other moments but he is going to town pounding this woman.
This matronly mother of two, it's really uncomfortable. It is real uncomfortable. And I mean, like, I can deal with a rape scene, but there's so much about this that is just really off-putting. And I just want to acknowledge that, again, this is not some sex pot. This is not a sexy rape scene. This is a mother. Her children are there. There are plenty of children there. Real children. These kids are watching on, and they clearly filmed it in a way where I'm sure like the actual rape between the two actors was filmed separately, but it is edited in a way to imply that these children are watching on as this mother is raped by this guy, and he's going at it. I mean, like, it's animalistic, and he's sucking on her nipples. It's just real uncomfortable, and nothing at all sexy about it, which it shouldn't be. It's a rape, but it's just the fact that kids are there watching makes this extremely difficult to watch.
Yeah, it's real sleazy. I don't know. I mean, and the kid, the actor who's actually portraying the kid, he is just like into it. I mean, he's like grunting and thrusting, and I'm like, oh boy.
And I want to acknowledge too, up to this point, Troy, Cleo has that whole bit where she unties herself. She's hogtied. She unties herself. She gets a knife in her mouth. She's sneaking around. You think she's going to get away. And it feels so unfair for yet another female in this film to have such an unceremonious, I don't want to say ending, but this is the last time you see her conscious. Conclusion, though, overall, the women here are just treated with no care or real, like, thoughtfulness at all. They're very disposable, and this scene is especially just unappealing to me. I don't know. I don't like the way the women are handled in this movie.
Yeah, it's a grimy, sleazy scene for sure. So Ross and John get back to Brown's house to question him, and he's not there. And then the sheriff gets a call from his deputy, Luke. We haven't mentioned Deputy Luke, but Deputy Luke has been a presence throughout the film, who tells him he needs to get back in town right away because something big is happening. John says he's going to stay there and wait for Braun. And the sheriff's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll touch base with you later." So the sheriff leaves him there. Obviously, John was tired because he falls asleep in a hammock. Next shot, he's in a hammock sleeping, and he's awakened by the gaggle of kids with various instruments who scream at him an exact line from Children of the Corn: "Outlander must die." And they attack him. They stab him. He's able to get up, but he runs into Glenn, and he knows it's Glenn because obviously it's the oldest kid of the bunch, and he starts calling him Glenn. He's like, "Glenn, Glenn, you're Glenn, you're Glenn. Do you remember you're Glenn?" And Glenn attacks him again, and they brawl for a moment, and other kids start throwing rocks at him. So he runs into the barn loft to get shelter from these kids.
For Glenn, I gotta say, he's been living in the woods for years now, surviving. You'd think he would be able to fight better than he does. There are 2 sequences in which John fights with Glenn, and both times John kicks his fucking ass. This kid is really not intimidating at all. And so, it's hard to really pinpoint the threat factor in this movie. Nothing in this film is extremely threatening. None of these kids, maybe when they swarm, it's really hard to kill them off. You can get overwhelmed with them. But individually, none of these kids seem at all intimidating. And at least you would expect Glenn to have some intimidation factor. But, he doesn't. He's very easily dispatched multiple times. So it feels very low stakes. Especially once you start to see him trying to call the shots. He just is not at all. He doesn't come across as a leader. You think he would have to because of his brainwashing washing children to eat their parents. You would think that this guy would have some charisma or have some draw factor, and he doesn't. He's just a lame duck the whole time.
Yeah, there's nothing about this kid that screams this is a cult leader. Why do these kids want to follow him so bad? He's scrawny, he can't fight, he barely says a word of dialogue in the entire film. It's real odd. So the sheriff gets back and addresses the crowd, trying to pacify the crowd by telling them that they have a new lead. They just need to be patient. The crowd is not buying it. There's one old fucker who's hated the sheriff since day one. Who's like, "I didn't elect him." He's like, "We need answers. And you always say you're going to give us answers and you never have some." And they tell Luke, especially Braun tells Luke, that he better not forget his past. So there's a subtle hint with Luke that Luke maybe in his, as a child was a brownie or a religious fanatic, because Luke's response is, "That was the past. We don't think about that anymore." And then the old man is like, "Where's the reporter, Sheriff? Did you have her dispatched? Did you have her transferred?"
There's that one guy, that one fucking piece of shit who's always speaking on behalf of the townspeople. He's got those Coke bottle glasses, and he seems like he's from Jersey. He doesn't at all give me the vibes of rural town folk. He's like, "Yeah, where's that Miss Hawthorne? Where'd you have her transferred out of town? He sounds like a mob boss. He doesn't sound like a rural, what they say, that. Well, they do say that they're in Jersey, but they say they're in the Bible Belt. But he just doesn't at all seem like he mixes in with this crowd. And then you get those awkward close-up shots of several of the townspeople's emotionless faces, and they all look just very homely people. You just get all these men with this long hair. They look like they belong in this town, but they all just have stone faces. It's very weird the way they edit the sequence.
Yeah. Well, John is in the barn, and the kids, they rope up a corpse. They rope up poor Miss Hawthorne's corpse. It looks like it's been picked apart. There's no skin left on the bones. We just see her dress or her jumpsuit she was wearing.
They awkwardly swing her through the barn door too, and she's very rubbery. This mannequin, this skeleton that they put a bunch of red clay on. I don't know. And so they just toss her through the window, and John's like, "What the fuck? Whoa!" And then they cut to a close up, and she has human eyes. It's very weird, but it's actually in close up for a moment. This thing is pretty creepy, but it's when they're showing it from a distance, it's bouncing around, that you can tell this thing is definitely made out of rubber.
Oh yeah, it's not a. I did not once buy that this was a human woman.
Right.
It's so
Not
wrong.
at all.
Yeah. So Braun it starts spouting to the crowd about Beelzebubs and sluts and gods and goblins and demons, and we got to take care of these Beelzebubs and sluts who have taken over our children. And Ross is like, "You better not be calling my kids sluts, or I'll cut your tongue out with a carpet knife." And Luke is trying to keep the peace, Deputy Luke, and Braun is like, "Luke, you know that when the time comes, you too will join the sacrifice of Abraham." And you can tell Deputy Luke is getting less and less concerned with what the sheriff's doing, and there's moments where he's realizing maybe these town people are right.
There's so many little things here that like they were definitely onto something with the script. Like the sacrifice of Abraham, like hearing that and knowing what's about to come is actually really creepy. Like there's definitely some thought put into aspects of the script. And I do think there was a potential for something in there. It's just so poorly executed. The quality of this film is so bad, but I do think this is a film that, like, if it were to be remade, like, there would be kind of a wealth of material to work with in the hands of a filmmaker who actually knew what they were doing with it. Because there's some cool concepts in what they're saying. There really is.
I'm wondering if this film could be remade. I don't know. I don't think you could go as balls out with the ending as this film did, but it would be interesting to see. At the barn, Amy and this other little girl have climbed up the ladder. I love that John grabs Amy, he throws her into the barn, and then he pushes the ladder with the little girl still on it onto the ground.
She shrieks that blood-curdling childlike scream as she falls backwards. I love it. And then you see her hit the ground and like waddle away.
Waddle into the woods. He tries to talk sense into Amy, but she says her name is now Wealthiow and that she's Grendel's bride, and that Grendel is going to avenge the fact that you got me. And we are demons, she says, cast out and cursed. And angry. We're angry, so we want to kill. And he like ties her up. And then there's this real weird moment where she asks him, "Will you touch me like Grendel touched Mother? Like Grendel touched Mother, so you should be able to touch me." And
she straight up asks him to fuck her.
I know. And she's like 14. She's supposed to be like 14. And they hear the siren because Ross has come back. And John rushes to the barn door and tries to scream out to Ross to get back into the car because all the kids are around. It's too late though, because the kids come out of the fucking bushes. They jump on Ross, knock him to the ground, and beat him half-ass like this, just like fist up and down, not even any pressure. The one has the knife, pretends to stab him. Grendel watches on, but that's the end of poor Ross.
Talk about going out with a bang. No, that's complete sarcasm. This death is so bad. This guy, he's the second lead, secondary lead for sure. And for him to go out like this was so unsatisfying. These kids, they've got smiles on their faces. They're giggling. And I'm not saying like maniacal. You can tell they're like, "Oh, this is fun. Oh, we're killing this guy." And they're awkwardly just softly pummeling him. And, he tries to get back up. One of them hits him in the head with a rock. But really, for this guy, and especially considering the scale of some of the deaths that we've seen, for him to just kind of beaten to death, mostly off camera, extremely unsatisfying. And let's really acknowledge just how weird that moment where she asked dude to fuck her is. She is she's supposed to be 14. She calls him uncle. Doesn't she call him Uncle John too? Because it's not really her uncle, but he's close friends with her father, and it's close enough that she says Uncle John, and it just makes it extremely it feels incestual, even though it's not, and it feels just so inappropriate. But what about this film is appropriate, especially this last 10 minutes? It's about to get real fucking weird.
Luckily, he's like, "Amy, you need to, what are you talking about?" He wants nothing to do with it, thank God, because that would have been even worse. He actually drags Amy out of the barn as she insists that Grendel is still going to get him and that she has no father, because he's like, "Amy, that was your father," because she's like laughing that her father has been killed. And she's like, "I have no father." He gags her, takes her out of the barn. She screams for Grendel, but he puts him into the reporter's car because now the reporter's car is on the property under a tarp. And he drives her into town. and she's still being all defiant and bitchy. When they get back to town, he makes her like sink down into the seat so nobody sees. And he gets out. The group is there, and Luke rushes up to him and says, John, I need to tell you, Cleo, your wife, and your daughter are missing, and I found blood on the staircase. And then Luke is like, these aren't kids, John, they're demons. And Braun is there, and Braun is like, this man is going to stand in the way of the hand of Abraham. And we are called upon to sacrifice just like Abraham did. And John is like, what are you talking about? You guys are crazy. You're talking about killing your own children? And John looks at Luke and says, Luke, tell him. And this is when Luke takes his deputy badge off and throws it onto the ground. So John realizes, oh shit, these people are nuts. He rushes back to the car with Amy, tells Amy to tell him where the camp is at so that he can take them and protect the children.
She will not shut the fuck up, Amy. And she's like, absolutely, I'll take you. Because you have no hope regardless. You are banished along with the rest of us. So she's like, come with me. She casually takes him back through the woods. It's very easy to access this large clearing where all these children are. And they come upon what is this big ceremony. And like, if we're going to talk about, children of the corn, and moments that feel like they're definitely trying to tie into that children of the corn energy vibe that they're creating there. It's very clear that even down to the look of the character of Glenn, they're trying to give a kind of Malachi-esque energy here. And this moment is especially, I don't want to say it's replicating it. It's still kind of its own thing, but it's definitely capturing that whole ceremony vibe that you get with Children of the Corn, as they have the character of Cleo tied down for this big sacrifice where she's about to get her hearts pulled out, beating in his hand. It just all feels very much like they're trying to capture that same vibe, but they don't come close to it. This all feels very tacky, very cheap. But there is this cool moment here where you do see Cleo get her heart ripped out, and you do see it like pumping in his hand. But it also feels kind of like a letdown because, again, Cleo's character, like last thing we saw, she was raped, and now she's just dispatched. Like she's just laying there, knocked out. They pull her heart out. That's it. That's all. She doesn't get to defend herself or anything.
No, as the kids are chanting that chant, gulp or blood. John comes upon the scene and he sees this happening, and he doesn't seem bothered by the fact that he just saw Cleo get her heart ripped out. In fact, like he is very protective of these children, because what happens is John screams to Grendel or Glenn, hey, I have your queen, come and get her. Grendel runs down there, and John has him dispatched in like 5 seconds, literally knocks him out onto the ground, punches him a bunch of times in the face. That's it.
He knocks him down, and the kid even gets back up to try to tackle him again, and he still gets him down a second time. This kid is so lame.
Yeah. He asks the kids where his daughter is. So he sees her and he gets her, picks her up. Lo and behold, Braun and a bunch of the town folks show up. And John is like, what are you doing here, you Bible thumping moron? And Braun's like, these demons must be sacrificed. And he says, they're just children. They've been brainwashed by a kid who's grown up in the woods the past 10 years. They need help. And if I swear to God, if one child is harmed, I'll have you all brought up on accessory to murder charges. Braun literally takes a rifle. And keep in mind, John has Kara, his daughter, in his arms. Braun takes a rifle and literally shoots John right between the eyes, in the forehead. Our protagonist, our hero, the one that was supposed to save the day, that figured out how everything was going on. I find it it's shocking. I find it really interesting in a good way that he is dispatched by a townsfolk and not a child.
Yeah. It's a pretty shocking twist. Like, it was the last thing I anticipated for this character, but when it happens, it feels like very right because, I was like, how is this guy going to go out? I knew that something had to happen, but for the fact that it's at the hands of Braun, I think kind of shows like that nobody here is any better than each other. You know, the kids are all obviously brainwashed, but they're doing horrible things. And so the solution is to just massacre them. And like it is exactly what you've been waiting for this whole time. And while it is not necessarily well executed, they really swing for the fences with this scene. I mean, they know what you've been waiting for and they're ready to serve it up. The special effects are terrible. The kids cannot act at all. And it is really comedic, but it is also shocking. My jaw was dropped for this whole scene because I can't believe they're fucking doing this. These people have some fucking cojones.
Yeah, I mean, because once John is dispatched, the slaughter of the children begins. This is what you've been waiting for, the last 4 minutes of the film. I mean, yes, these kids cannot act. They don't like you can see kids preparing to be killed and, it's real shoddy. It really is. I get why people get a kick out of this scene because it's fun seeing, an 8-year-old get shot through the mouth. But a whole massacre ensues. I mean, these kids are like slaughtered, and you got like 4-year-old. You got that one little kid running to his mom and jumping in her arm when she
just stabs him in the back.
You got, you got the kid, the blonde kid that gets shot through the mouth and his brain splatters out on the back of the wall behind him. You get that the Chubbums trying to climb into the tire to hide and is shot.
The kid with the pitchfork through the neck. That one. That's one of the ones I think this film is most known for.
Yeah. Amy is just shot, like unceremoniously. She's just shot. She like screams no and is just shot. So is Glenn.
Yeah.
So there's no justice. It doesn't feel like some of these other kids get murdered way more brutally than he does. He just climbs up onto a thing and starts screaming and someone just shoots him.
I wonder if that was almost intentional, though, Troy. I wonder if you notice how Grendel is not ever once in a position where he's overpowering someone or like, aside from the rape sequence where that poor woman's pretty much tied down, Grendel is not capable of doing much. And I wonder if that was almost intentional because he is a child that grew up in the woods and he's just brainwashed into thinking the way that he thinks because he doesn't know any better. But it doesn't really mean that he's an expert fucking fighter or anything like that. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not saying he should have put up a fight. I'm saying his death should have been far worse than just being shot. Especially when you have kids getting pitchforks through their throats, machetes through their body, bullets through their mouth. You got the one kid who gets the shotgun, blows his head off with that paper mache head.
It's one of the worst head explosions that I've ever seen. You can see the foam. You can see the white foam of it. But again, there's an endearing quality to it because I think they knew they had to go big with this. They're like, let's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And a lot of it looks really bad, but it's fun. And not saying that watching children getting massacred should be fun, but if you're going to do it, might as well go big.
It's fun. And they dispatch a lot of children of various ages. You get that one kid that gets shot with the arrow, but he clearly just catches it and it doesn't even hit him. It falls out of the tree. I mean, the effects are horrible. But yes, you get about a minute and a half of bliss just watching these adults slaughter these children in horrific ways. And when they're done, I mean, they're done. They just leave. And it's kind of eerie. Just to see after they slaughter all these kids, just to see these adults just get back into their cars and just drive away to leave all these dead kids laying in this field, except we hone in on John's dead body and you see it start to move and, start to bump up and down. And all of a sudden it flips over and we get I think it's pretty effective. His face, the bullet hole in his head. It's one of the better effects in the film. And he's just glass-eyed, bullet through his forehead. But we see that Kara, his daughter, is still alive, which makes sense. He was holding her. He fell on top of her. She's still alive. Luckily, the townsfolk are gone because they don't see her. But we get that moment where she is walking around taking everything in. And you get shots of all of the dead kids. Not one of them can stand still. Not one of them can hold their breath for 5 seconds. You see him moving. You see him breathing. I mean, you see a kid that's supposed to have his neck gouged with a pitchfork, and he's clearly breathing. You get one kid like moving his hand. I'm like, the director could not like, really?
Just freeze a still. Just take a still of it and just keep it focused on that for a couple frames. But no, but again, it adds to the kind of grassroots indie quality of it. That does make it again feel very endearing. And I think these kids probably had a blast doing this.
Oh,
but I do think that there, like you did say, how this moment is very creepy, and for a film that has been so absurd and really so bad, let's be real, this whole film is very bad. This final moment, there's that kind of aerial shot of the aftermath, and you see everyone walk away, and you just see all these corpses laying there, and it is for a moment in the stillness of it all, and you just hear the sounds of like the forest, and it's actually quite creepy. And then you have the daughter get up. She's kind of walking through the aftermath, and then you see that little rabbit, and she hovers over it with her knife, and you hear that weird kind of like animalistic growl, because you have heard throughout the film, for some reason, every once in a while, the kids growl like zombies, which they are not. I've seen them described as zombies in like description pieces for this film before. They're not. They're very much humans, but you hear that weird kind of shrieking, growling noise, and then it cuts to a freeze frame of her kind of snarling, and that's it, and that's the end of the movie, and it ends in an awkward fashion, which makes sense for this movie because very little about this film really felt easy to understand. I think there's a story there. I think there's an idea there, but they really did their very best to make this thing just as muddied and confusing and just complicated as possible. This film is way more convoluted than it should be. I feel like a film like this should have just been a blueprint for this is how you make a movie that's going to satisfy gorehounds and people who like taboo horror, and just kind of stick to the formula and don't overload it with bad dialogue. That's all you got to do. And somehow they managed to fuck it up. But at least that final act there, they do give you what you've been waiting for.
I will say, if I was forced to say, do I think the final moments of the film are worth sitting through the rest of it? I will say, yeah, because it's just not something you see in cinema. You do not see young kids blatantly be butchered in horrific ways completely on screen. I mean, none of the kids are killed off screen. You see everything. And as horrible as the effects might be, and as horrible as the kids acting and reacting to what's happening to them it is still quite like disturbing, but also highly entertaining. It's just the film suffers. I'm going to say, just very lack of knowledge maybe in filmmaking and no money. And I mentioned that there's not a lot of, I don't think there were more than one take on a lot of the scenes, and it's very apparent. I think you had good bones with the script, particularly, what we talked about earlier with, good versus evil, things like that, religion versus, fiction, all of that sort of stuff just didn't work here because the filmmakers weren't talented enough to pull it off or knowledgeable enough to pull it off. And I don't know. It's worth a watch, but be clear, it is not a good film by any stretch of the imagination.
No. I think they made it knowing that they were working towards the goal of this big final sequence, and everything else was like, how do we get there? And it just got way too complicated, way too complex, way too wordy. But you're right, there are bones for something here. And I mean, it would have to be a shocksploitation film still. You would still have to see kids die at the end. But I would like to see this script like revisited. I really would, because I think that there's plenty of interesting ideas in there, little gems in that script that could have been really polished and made something significantly more enticing for a viewer to enjoy. But what we got was very, very amateur, very indie. And, there is a charm to it. I will say there is definitely a charm to it. I tip my hat to the filmmakers for trying to make something so shocking and so unlike anything we've experienced. They pulled it off. They didn't pull it off well, but they pulled it off. And for that, we've got to celebrate Beware, Children at Play, for what it is, a movie that massacres children. And isn't that what Dark Knight of the podcast is all about here on our 5th anniversary, Troy. We've been looking for a movie like this.
We've mentioned it many times that, children being killed is something we like to see. Now, I don't know. Nobody likes to see it, but it's fun. It's fun in this film. And yeah, give this film to a filmmaker who has balls, who still takes the bare bones of the story, but explores it in a much more meaningful way. And I think you could create something fun here. But again, the filmmaker is going to have to be ballsy and not cop out on the ending, because that's what people want to see. But again, Beware Children at Play. It was a fun title to review for our 170th episode and our 5-year big one. Yeah, so that's Beware Children at Play, guys. Let us know your thoughts on the film. And Roger, I do think I know what my next film is going to be if you want to hear it.
I do. And I also want to hear from our listeners, though. If you guys can think of other movies where children are violently massacred, let us know. Because maybe we'll review those as well. Because this is not a good movie. I wonder if a good movie exists out there with a similar premise or concept behind it. That is something I want to hear from my listeners. But right now, what I want to hear coming from the lips of Troy Escamilla is his pick for our next review.
Well, it's episode 171, which gave me an idea. I was like, I'm going to look for a film from 1971. We very rarely do older films. And me, I get stuck on 80 slashers or 90 slashers or sometimes, 2010 paranormal stuff. So I went back into the 70s and looked at 71, and a title immediately caught my eye. And I'm like, that is it. That is it. It's perfect. We're going to cover 1971's Bay of Blood, directed by Mario Bava, who the film is heavily thought to have influenced Friday the 13th Part 2. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen Bay of Blood?
I've never seen Bay of Blood.
Okay. It is one of the first splatter films, one of the first gore films. It's Italian. And I've seen it. And yes, there are scenes that are undeniably recreated in Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2, but I think there's other things about the film to talk about. So I'm excited to visit it, because we very rarely do older films. And this is 71. This very well may be the oldest film we've covered on the podcast.
I love this era of horror cinema. I really do. I think that this is something that I would like to see us dive into more. This is a little bit older than I know we did Messiah of Evil.
That's like
a long time ago, which I think is 1973.
Yes.
I think so. This could very well be. Well, Night of the Living Dead is 69. We did.
Do Night of the Living Dead.
We did, but this is right up there.
Right up there. It's right up there.
Yeah. So this is gonna be exciting. I'm excited to cover this. Never seen it. I know the visuals. I know there's some specific visuals that are associated with this film. So I'm jazzed. Good call.
Yeah,
good call,
I'm
Troy.
excited. Yes, it gave me. I wanted to do something different, so I was like 71. There, episode 171. Let's look at something from 71, since we never do older films. And A Bay of Blood was the first thing that came up, honestly. And I was like, oh, perfect. But guys, yes, thank you for tuning in. Let us know your thoughts on Beware Children at Play. And leave us that 5-year 5-star review. Please, let's get up to 70. We're at 64 now. So we just need 6 of you to write a 5-star review for us. Roger and I are going to be coming live from Houston Horror Film Festival. We'll have some material from that for you to dive into. So with that, guys, thank you for tuning in. Wish us a happy 5-year birthday, and good night.
Good night, and we'll maybe see you at the Houston Horror Film Festival. Good night.
Woohoo!